मैं यहाँ पे 1999 में आई थी मैं।
99 में आए?
हाँ।
बाप रे, तो 23 साल हो गया।
यहाँ आए हुए बस शादी के तो हो गए 29 साल। पहले एक्चुअली हम लोग लखनऊ में थे, इनकी जॉब लखनऊ में थी तो हमारी शादी लखनऊ में हुई थी, बट इनकी जॉब 98 में लगी तो हम लोग 99 में आ गए यहाँ पर साथ में।
आई टेल यू वन थिंग, मेरी एक बेटी थी जब मैं यहाँ आया, शी वॉज वेरी स्मॉल, 3 साल 4 साल की थी। ये यहीं पर ही हुई थी एंड जिस दिन ये हुई तो हम लोग हॉस्पिटल में हुई थी, लेकर आए इसको, और जब हमने घर में बताया अगल बगल अड़ोस पड़ोस को तो आई मीन वी वर वेरी हैप्पी कि सेकेंड डॉटर है, लक्ष्मी आ गई, दूसरी लक्ष्मी आ गई। बट मोहल्लों वालों का रिएक्शन, द लोकल्स, दिस अरे दूसरी लड़की आ गई। आई मीन दे वर फीलिंग सैड।
यहाँ के और हमारे कल्चर में फर्क था बहुत, तो अब वो भी धीरे धीरे ठीक हो गया है। अब तो बहुत फर्क पड़
कल्चर में क्या फर्क था आपका? आप तो प्रयागराज से है।
हाँ,
तो वहाँ का कल्चर कैसा था?
नहीं, वहाँ के कल्चर से और हरियाणा के कल्चर से तो बहुत फर्क है। हम लोग इतना नहीं करते, पर्दा नहीं, इतना वो नहीं, मतलब पढ़ाई लिखाई हम लोग के यहाँ ज़्यादा थी, यहाँ नहीं थी, ये सब फर्क था। यहाँ लड़का लड़की में बहुत फर्क था। वही जब बता रहे थे ना ये हुई, तो हम लोग के यहाँ तो है कि बच्चा हुआ तो फिर मालिश करने वाली को लगाते हैं, थोड़ा सेवा करते हैं, तो हमने मालिश करने वाली को लगा दिया तो हमारे अड़ोस पड़ोस में जो थी बोलती थी बेटी तो हुई है, क्यों मालिश करवा रहे हो? इस तरह का कल्चर था यहाँ, हम लोग के तरफ ऐसा नहीं था।
डॉटर हो सन हो सब इक्वल है, बराबर है। बट हाँ, हम यहाँ के माहौल से कह सकते हैं हरियाणा में ऐसा है। अब तो काफ़ी चेंज हो गया, आप लोगों को कम फ़र्क पड़ने लगा, बट फ़र्क पड़ता है।
इनिशियली जो आप कह रहे थे कि बच्चों को पढ़ाने में डर नहीं लगा, मेरे ख्याल से टिल वेरी लेट डर नहीं लगा था, बट द मोमेंट दे वेंट टू द कॉलेजेस थोड़ा डर लगता था। जिस तरह का माहौल था यहाँ पे, उससे लगता तो था डर। अकेले आ रही है, शी यूज्ड टू कम फ्रॉम दिल्ली 9:30 10:30 अलोन। तो मैं आई कैन नॉट, मतलब मैं सोच भी नहीं सकता था कि मैं इनको बोल दूं कि ऑटो से आ जाओ। तो आई यूज्ड टू गो पिक हर अप फ्रॉम द स्टेशन। तो इतना डर तो है, ये डर धीरे धीरे पड़ रहा है।
Do I feel afraid? Not really. I used to, because of how we've talked about things at our home, outside, even at school. There have been instances where I have been afraid, where there have been people I have had to be very cautious about moving around. But to be honest, when I got used to it, for example, I used to go to college every day from my house to North Campus, which is around 1.5 hours. And I used to come back late at night. Sometimes it would get 10, 11. And I've always reached back safely. And I've always been able to maneuver the streets. I've also moved out of my house. So, since I think the past few months, 6 months, I've been living in Delhi. Which has been fine. So I have had to do a lot of things on my own. So obviously the fear has gone down because I've had a lot more agency in moving about, a lot more independence. So I think the fear mostly is connected to this idea that something might happen. But when you start going out on your own and you realize that you are capable enough to just go around, move around, live your life, do things, the fear tends to go down. You still have to be cautious, obviously. In Gurgaon, it's obviously not a very safe city. But I think I've become more confident to take that risk. And I think to go out, you lie. A lot of it is because I want to be able to go out without having any hassle at home, without my mom saying no to me. A lot of it is also that I don't want her to worry, and I know I will be able to manage. And when you're in an Uber to a place that, and you're somewhere late at night, you do constantly worry about your own safety, but then there is this constant negotiation between worrying about whether your mom will find out and worrying about the surroundings, your own safety. And somehow, I don't know why, and this is something that I've figured out by talking to a lot more women, is that the thing that overpowers is what if my mom finds out. Even I've gone to trips and I've thought if something happens to me or my mom will find out I was in Manali. And that has been a constant, I think that has constantly overpowered.
She stays alone in Pune. I don't, मेरे को कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. Because I think it is the safest place in India. If you want to move out in Gurgaon at around 10 o'clock, if you want to go out of your house, you probably have to take your brother or your husband along.
हाँ, ऐसा हम लोग फील करते हैं कि बच्चा सेफ है, बट बच्चे नहीं फील करते. ऐसा कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता उनको कि ब्रदर जा रहा है साथ में या नहीं जा रहा है.
थोड़ा रिबेलियस हो जाता है एट टाइम्स, कि भाई क्यों नहीं जा सकती मैं. जैसे अभी फॉर एग्जाम्पल लाइक मेरा कज़न आया हुआ है, तो ये अपने दोस्तों से मिलने गया हुआ था, एंड अराउंड 10 ही कॉल दैट आई एम इन हॉर्स खास एंड आई विल बी बोर्डिंग मेट्रो. तो मम्मी कहती हाँ कोई नहीं ठीक है आराम से आ जाना. लाइक 1 मिनट ये क्या था. सो देन इट मेक्स मी अ बिट रिबेलियस कि नहीं ये गलत हो रहा है एंड ऐसे नहीं होना चाहिए. तो मेरा रोल तो थोड़ा मुझे तो ऐसे हो गया कि लाइक दी ऐसा चाइल्ड कि हाँ अब ये लड़ेगी सॉर्ट ऑफ अ थिंग, लाइक हर चीज़ में ना कि हाँ ठीक है शी टॉक्स बैक अ लॉट एंड ये वो. तो शायद पहले मतलब नहीं करती थी मैं, अब थोड़ा मतलब ज़्यादा करती हूँ बिकॉज
इंडिपेंडेंट हो गई जब से.
इट्स नॉट ओनली अबाउट इंडिपेंडेंस. मुझे लगता है थोड़ी विजडम भी आती है एज के साथ. यू सी थिंग्स एंड देन मुझे लगता है कि शादी के लिए तो आपको मेरी एज सही लग रही है, बाहर जाने के लिए मतलब मैं छोटी हूँ. दैट थिंग कम्स इनटू पिक्चर.
2006 के बाद यहाँ पे जो बूम आया रियल एस्टेट में, people started selling their land, they started getting better money out of it. उनका भी standard of living started changing, schooling अच्छी होने लग गई बच्चों की. They also wanted कि उनके बच्चे भी पढ़ें. घर का एटमॉस्फेयर चेंज हुआ. बट देयर इज नेगेटिव साइड ऑल्सो. ज़्यादा पैसा आया तो ज़्यादा अय्याशी भी आई है यहाँ पे. क्राइम भी बहुत ज़्यादा हुआ है, बड़ा है.
Suddenly, a lot of people started gaining a lot of money because Gurgaon became a development hub. So all the real estate builders and everyone, they wanted to buy land in Gurgaon to develop malls and to develop these skyscrapers. So and these land mostly belong to the village people and the people who have been doing the farming and everything since forever over here. And so they got a lot of money for that land, and suddenly in Gurgaon everyone was rich, and it happened so suddenly. And I remember I was in school at that time, and I used to see so many, like suddenly there was a surge, एकदम से surge आया कि हाँ मतलब गाड़ियाँ ही गाड़ियाँ. It just increased drastically, like exponentially. तो उस time पे young kids driving maybe 13-14 years of age, young boys, and they are just black tinted glasses and music up, following the school girls from their stops to their homes, and it was just ridiculous. And I still remember that phase because I remember once there was this guy in our neighborhood, in our sector, and he just went past my home and he said Shambhavi. He just shouted my name. I don't know like how he got to know, because they used to do friendship with our friends, like bus stop पे काफी सारे बच्चे उतर रहे हैं तो किसी से नाम पूछ लिया, sort of like that. And for that my parents reacted like ये कौन है? They were angry on me. I was like, why the hell would I know ये कौन है भाई? It was like absolutely crazy.
Safety is an issue, I think, especially because of how Gurgaon is structured also. A lot of spaces in Gurgaon are constantly very empty. There is barely any crowd there, especially late at night. a lot of places closed down. So to move from here to some place that might be open, for example, from here to go to a mall that's around half an hour away or 20 minutes away, the stretch is sort of very empty. So I think that is one of the major safety reasons. That's something you won't see in Delhi because Delhi is crowded everywhere mostly. So the crowd is an issue. I think another issue is that, officially also you don't have a lot of safety controls. You don't have a lot of police.
गेटेड कम्युनिटी इसीलिए लोग प्रेफर करते हैं, हाई राइज इसीलिए प्रेफर करते हैं बिकॉज दे थिंक कि सिक्योरिटी गार्ड है, देर आर चेक्स एट एवरी पॉइंट. आप गेट के अंदर आ रहे हो, फिर आप टावर के अंदर आ रहे हो, देर इज अ गार्ड सिटिंग, देन बिफोर एनीवन गेट्स इनटू द टावर आपके पास कम्युनिकेशन आ जाता है. तो यस, गेटेड कम्युनिटी इज ऑलवेज बेटर. सेक्टर में ये है कि यू हैव ऑल द फ्रीडम, but then your stake of security is less.
The hard nose, I think that only comes with financial independence. And I think the financial independence is also linked because I want to be able to take those decisions for my parents also. That sounds a little weird. But the independence of being able to buy my parents whatever they want, for my dad to be able to retire and live a comfortable life. I think to have that control also over the family dynamics is something that I want. I remember we would not go out a lot, we would not eat out a lot, our lifestyles are completely different. Mostly, a lot of it was also because we weren't as affluent back then, but also because the access was very limited. So I hadn't seen a lot beyond the boundaries of my home or the boundaries of my sector or institutions like school, etc. I think as we grew up, because Gurgaon started developing a lot, we started going out a lot more. With my parents, the idea of going out with friends also became a huge concept.
She was a bit younger when the Gurgaon was at its development peak. As in, the first mall I still remember, Lifestyle, was there, and we didn't have a car. We just used to have a scooter, and my father, like my mom and my dad, they went on that scooter to that mall, and when they came back, I was so upset because I wanted to see that mall. It was such a huge thing for us. I was like, why didn't you take me with you? And sort of that. And then gradually I saw that mall was just like something. Now it's like, a shopping place for today's kids. It's not something to go and visit, it's just a normal, there are so many malls. Even when, like my friends come from some other city or some small city, they're so amazed by looking at the high-rise buildings and the number of malls, like the sectors where the number of cafes, it has like grown so much. There's this common saying that wahan jaake dekho lagta hi nahi hai India hai, kind of like that. And the new Gurgaon has lived up to that.
I think growing up, I've seen money means a lot of independence. Initially, I think I made a very, very strong decision to move out of literature and to pursue something that's completely for my financial sake. Also because I think my aspirations for this family align with that, for which I will need a lot of financial independence. I don't think my parents' aspirations and my aspirations match for that. I don't know how comfortable they will be accepting the money that I have been earning for a while and will be completely my own. I have never had money that has been completely my own till like the past few months where I just got a scholarship and I've been paying my rent off of that. But it was very important for me to be able to reach that position because I think what I want for this family is A, to be able to live comfortably. That's very important for me. Also B, I think I want to be the support pillar for this family. I want my father to retire. I want my mom, after my dad retires, I want my mom to be able to do whatever she wants to do, the things she's not been able to do for a while because it was her money and she was constrained about spending it, about the entire budgeting of the domestic. So saying that I want her to be able to be free from all those roles of constantly having to finance her desires, whatever she wants. My grandmother also,
What are these desires and aspirations, and are they shaped by Gurgaon?
They are shaped by Gurgaon, I'd say that. Starting from something very concrete, I think the desire to live in a different space.
A gated community.
A gated community, perhaps a bigger house, a better car, just your basic desires that shape you. Gurgaon plays a lot of role because as soon as you step out, especially because how we are, I don't know, structured in Gurgaon, as you step out from old Gurgaon to new Gurgaon, the kind of houses you start seeing, the kind of cars you start seeing, the surroundings you start seeing that a house is situated right next to a mall, the convenience of that becomes the basic aspiration of people living in Gurgaon. I
Is it
think.
also your parents' aspirations, or is it something that you're bringing in the family?
I think it's my
your
parents.
mother's is at least.
Yeah, I have heard that. Papa,
I'm a very satisfied man. मेरा aspirations are not very big. I just want to be. There are very little. I am happy in very little small things. मेरा कोई ऐसा big aspirations नहीं है. I just want to be in a comfortable zone. That's all.
What are your aspirations?
हाँ, मुझे रहने के लिए एक अच्छा माहौल चाहिए और जो यहाँ नियर अबाउट नहीं है। सो मैं हमेशा कहती हूँ कि फ्लैट में शिफ्ट होते हैं, है ना? तो यहाँ पे नहीं है। मुझे ऐसा नहीं लगता कि किसी के साथ निकल के हम अपनी तरह की बातें 2 घंटे कर सकते हैं या 1 घंटे कर सकते हैं या उनके साथ कहीं हम बाहर जा सकते हैं। तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि फ्लैट का एटमॉस्फेयर एटलीस्ट बाहर से लोग आए हुए होंगे तो वो हर कल्चर को जानते होंगे, गेट टुगेदर होगा। ऐसी हमारी सोच है। इसलिए मैं ऐसा चाहती हूँ कि हाँ, कैन शिफ्ट।
I remember my friend of mine when we were in school. So she was the richest of all, and she was not my close friend. I was saying she was a friend of friend, and she used to have car with her in school, and it was so cool. Like when we were in school, to us it was like, okay, she drives not only a car with a driver, she used to drive it. So as we were talking about the power dynamics, so she had a little bit of power over her because. She was the one who is supposed to drive and pick people, and so in a way, like everyone would be more nicer to her.
class does play a role, of course, in all forms of relationships. But in Gurgaon, because there are so many layered classes, I never felt like I was missing out on something. But of course, there were friends who were richer, and how that impacted my friendship with them also changed. So one of my best friends lived very close to my house, and as she started earning more money, they moved out. They shifted to Heritage City, which is right next to MG Road, very posh society. And her lifestyle suddenly changed a lot. Earlier we used to just cycle around the colony, or just she would come to my place, we play some games on the computer. But now her idea of going out used to be going out to the malls, or spending a lot more money, eating out a lot. I think she was also one of the people who shifted with me to Heritage School. And her reason for shifting was because her lifestyle has changed so much, it just wasn't fitting with DAV people. So my dynamics with her also changed. I couldn't meet her as often. I started off my schooling with DAV, which is one of the more traditional schools of Gurgaon. It's everywhere. It was in Sector 14. It was a bigger school in terms of the number of students, a lot more diverse. People came from all walks of society, and there were a lot more people who belonged to my class, below my class, above my class. And then moving out of that after 10th grade, I went to the Heritage School, which is, I think, one of the largest, most posh schools of Gurgaon, focused on experiential learning. So how people are brought up. So there were students, of course, anyone who goes there has to be very rich. Also, someone who's studying there from, say, since 12 years or not, has to be very rich, and their idea of schooling is very different. They don't have exams, which was the center of DAV's education, or competitions, which was also the center of DAV's extracurricular. And that's it. They grew tomatoes, they had pet hamsters for a day, they did carpentry and stitching in 8th grade. So their idea of schooling was very different, and which I think is good for kids, but also a really bubbled life, because then you also have to move out of it.
the concept of arranged marriage comes from the thing that you have to get married, right? Because if you don't have to get married, why would you seek someone just the purpose for just the purpose of getting married until and unless you don't like them? Like arranged marriage is where you don't know the person, right? Because you have to get married, you're finding a person. So I think that concept is all in all a bit reversed. Like you find a person comfortable enough that you can stay forever with, or I don't know, like I mean different people have, you know, not all people are monogamous, that different people have different views. So like if you find someone you're comfortable enough with, that's well and good. But if you cannot, I think people should be allowed to stay independent, which is currently not the scenario. I mean, especially for girls, like after a point, it's like the ultimate goal.
नहीं, ये सोच तो गलत है कि मैरिज ही नहीं करना है, ऐसे रहना है, ऐसे तो नहीं ठीक है. बाद में इसका बहुत वो होता है. पहले तो चलो ठीक है, नहीं करेंगे, मगर जब उम्र बढ़ती है बाद में फिर अकेलापन बहुत खलता है. इसलिए मैरिज तो बहुत जरूरी है, पर ये है कि हाँ ठीक ठाक से होनी चाहिए.
I have friends who have been in love marriages as well as arranged marriages, but especially when they have to live with the in-laws, that experience is not great, because like कितना भी बोल लो कि नहीं, मतलब हम बेटी की तरह रखते हैं, इंडिपेंडेंस है, ये है वो है, बट अल्टीमेटली यू डोंट हैव द कंफर्ट. लाइक आप टॉक बैक नहीं कर सकते जैसे आप अपने घर पे करते हो. यू कैन नॉट डू दैट बिकॉज यू आर द अल्टीमेट बहू. एंड देन plus you do not have that freedom कि कहीं भी आ जा सको, you know, you have to take care of everything, and like you cannot keep on doing that constantly. I mean, I know, मतलब मेरी मम्मी ने करा है और लोग करते हैं. I mean, people do that and hats off to them, but that should not be a compulsion, that should be a choice.
When she was not here, I was navigating it alone, and that time my boyfriend was in sector 30, which was like 15 minutes away from my place. But I'd have to get into a car to get there, and Ola Uber was, even though it was pretty popular by then, I was still small. I was 17, 18. So it mattered to me that the person is far away. And in the dynamics of, I mean, that person's also far away from me, but obviously I have to go to the new Gurgaon place because that's where things are. So it was always about me going there, and I felt that I'm coming from a place I wish I was not here. So the feeling was, I think, something that only I felt. But I don't know how true that is, because then he shifted to sector 90, which is like the completely new part of Gurgaon, which is not developed at all for now. There are buildings, there are flats which are very pretty, but the surrounding areas are not yet developed. Currently in the process. So I used to go to sector 90 also. I would take a cab, go to sector 90. That was not a very safe decision on my end. But even then, I thought that I'm living in a place which is not as cool as that, because the flats were still big. So I think I've always felt this little restriction because of my location in Gurgaon, especially with the newer boyfriend who lived in Galleria. He was close to Supermart, DLF Phase 4. He belongs to New Gurgaon, and he had a completely different lifestyle. His idea of going out was just going out of his house and going to the market. He lived very close to Galleria, so he'd just walk to Galleria, he'd walk to Supermart, and I had to come from 30 minutes away. So that was a different dynamic that we were navigating. Then I would come here and call my parents constantly. He was not used to it. He was very surprised all the time that why do you have to constantly inform your parents? Why is your mom constantly calling you? The question of why is she angry if you're like half an hour late? It's not that late anyway. It's something that I think is exclusively faced by women in Gurgaon, that men will never understand where we are coming from. Why do we have to lie? Why do we also have to lie even when there is the option of telling the truth and facing a little bit of inconvenience? Why do we have to make it convenient for ourselves? Why do we have to coordinate with my sister? So that little space of either men or even friends who don't come from similar backgrounds and family. A lot of friends who come from New Gurgaon, for whom it's very easier to just, everything else is completely accessible. They don't have to spend 30 minutes coming back to their houses, and they're close to their parents. they're visiting malls next to their houses. That's something that they don't understand. So that's something we constantly had to explain or fight about, argue about, get irritated about. But that's an emotion that was solely came out of other people not being able to understand my delight. So a lot of emotional labor also went into explaining this to people. I always felt that I'm restricted, but I don't think boys pick on girls based on where they're from in Gurgaon. But I am pretty sure they would enjoy the convenience of
Living nearby.
living nearby or having someone who doesn't have to answer so much, doesn't have to travel so much. You know. I think everyone at every place obviously wants to be sexually active or wants to seek it. But in Gurgaon, the idea is not completely unfathomable. You can go out, you can step out, get an Oyo, stay a night there. Also, the idea of meeting boys, different genders meeting, is not something very frowned upon. Like, it'd be frowned upon in a little colony, but you constantly see couples in the malls and parks and everywhere, and they're not usually that frowned upon. So just the existence and validity of it is easier. So I think that happens. Also, dating becomes an easier concept again because Gurgaon has given that space. You have cafes, you have little malls to go to, you have small parks, you have your own societies where you can just play together and have fun together. So that has always been true for Gurgaon. So I think it's more a matter of convenience that kids here can do it, and they have also seen other kids doing it. It's a lot more visible. So it's a lot more acceptable also to the people who are dating and who are going from one person to another, and to other people who are witnessing them, elders, adults, who are also becoming more accepting of the idea of relationships in teenage and young adults. So.
I think we have to coordinate a lot.
Yeah.
We coordinate a lot, like especially when we're going somewhere from, like we're both at home and then we're stepping out together, and then she's going someplace else and I'm going someplace else, and then we have to be back together and we have to constantly, coordinate कि अच्छा मम्मा का phone आएगा तो तुमने क्या बोला है. So we have to have everything pre-planned, and even when we're out there enjoying, it is constantly there in the back of our minds that we shouldn't get a call, or so this is the time we should call ourselves. Like, this is getting late, this is the time we usually talk to mom, so let's call her. And we usually coordinate that and everything. Coordinate the jam also, like traffic jam, ki wahan pe traffic jam tha. So I think, yeah, and that has, I think, helped in developing our bonding also, because although I'm set to get married, my roka is done, but still I had to go to Chandigarh to meet my guy, and I couldn't say that out loud, flat, that I'm going to meet him. So I had to coordinate with her a lot, because I was like, I'm at her place. So, I had to call at daytime, nighttime, managing everything. So yeah, as I was saying, this has helped develop our bonding a lot, because it was like we are each other confidants. I have to tell something, I have to vent out, I cannot discuss it with my parents, and sometimes friends don't work, at everything, because they wouldn't understand where I'm coming from, like why I have to lie so much. So we understand each other in that context.
Because she was able to rebel, because she was able to say no a lot of times, and she had to say yes a lot of times, and I have grown up observing that. I did have, if nothing else, I had the wisdom to see where I will have the agency in this house, where I will be able to negotiate with my parents, where I won't be able to, where I'll have to put my foot down. Because I've seen her struggle so much because of parental control, because of the roles that my parents had taken up into streamlining her education, making their decisions for her. I knew that I will never accept that. So after 10th grade, I completely refused that I will not take science, I will not take commerce, anything. I will not take maths. I used to really like math, but just because a lot of it was the resentment that my sister had to go for it, and everyone thinks that I have to go for it because I scored well, I did not. So I just went up, I took humanities, I did English literature. A lot of people did ask me, what will you do after English literature? which is a fair question in hindsight, but matlab, हाँ. So that was one very important pavement for me. Accessibility is, I think, something that has helped in women going out of their spaces and rebelling against their domestic restrictions.
The mode of transport has also been the accessibility that we were talking about. So the cabs have also been, very much in the circles. So earlier the cabs concept was not there. Just the Uber, Ola, it came very late when I was in college. So the cabs provided a sense of security, but then usme bhi we got these news items that this Uber wala did something and this Ola wala did something.
Another thing that helped a lot was that during COVID, she came back. We learned how to drive, and we had a car on our own, and that made things a lot more easier. The mobility factor just changed a lot of things for us. I think the existence of men around is another problem, because obviously, because of how the power dynamics are functioned, till the time there are men all free around, it's always going to be difficult to step out of the house or to move around. So I think that's one of the problems. The way out, I think, I'm not sure. I haven't been able to figure it out. I don't think anyone has been able to figure it out. Everyone's trying. But till that time, I think more women going out, seeing more women on streets, that makes me a lot more confident. That makes me feel safer. So I think the solution or the way out could be all of us moving out, all of us taking hold of the streets.